We're going to look again at calculating slope, and today we're going to start with looking at how we've done it in the past and then coming up with a new method because we can't always graph them. So if I graph my first 2 points, 1, 4 means, remember I do my x first and then I do my y. So that means I'm going to go across 1, up 4, put a dot, and then 5, negative 4. So I've got my 2 points. And then if I want to look at that slope between them, remember slope is rise over run. So my rise in this case is going to be a negative, and I could see if I connected these 2 points here that I would have a negative slope. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's down 8. And then I'm going across 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope in this case would end up being, oops, I said 4 and I wrote 8. Sorry about that. Negative 8 over 4. It doesn't really matter which one's negative. Just overall my slope is negative, which would equal negative 2. Now I want to give you the slope formula. This isn't something you'd have to memorize. You just need to be able to look up. And slope formula says, I'm going to take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then my points are x1, y1, and x2, y2. I'm going to move these just a little bit. So I've got my 2 points. Maybe I should label them. That would be more exciting. Anyway, we have our 2 points here. Ignore me as I'm, there we go. And so these are our points. So I'm going to show you how this works in this situation. So I have my points. I'm just going to label them. The first point is x1, y1. Second point is x2, y2. And what I'm doing is looking at my slope formula, and I really have these boxes here. I'm just going to draw them in on the first one. And all I'm going to do is fill in my boxes. So this first part here tells me I need a y2. So looking at my point, my y2 is a negative 4. So I put a negative 4 in that box. My second box tells me it's a y1, which means I'm going to put in a 4. And notice that minus sign in between, that always has to stay there. My box on the bottom is an x2, so that's going to be the 5. And my last one is going to be just the 1. And now I'm just doing negative 4 minus 4 and 5 minus 1. Negative 4 minus 4 is negative 8. 5 minus 1 is 4, which still gives me the same slope, which it should. And what this calculation here is doing is telling me how far apart are my x values. And then how far apart, or how far apart are my y values, how far apart are my x values. So it's just calculating rise over run. And it's that idea of those formulas. If you just kind of look at those, I know they can look confusing, but really just work on it's telling me what I have to substitute in where, and then you're doing your calculations. As you practice it, it gets significantly easier. If you're struggling with those subtraction pieces and you want to learn, think about what you think the answer is, type it in the calculator, and that's a great way to kind of start training your brain to do some of those calculations or to learn some of that if you didn't quite learn that last year. All right, we're going to try another one here together. So we're going to graph it again first. This is going to help us to be able to visually see it before we're working on something that's not quite as concrete. So I'm graphing my point 4, negative 3, and negative 2, 4. And again, if I look at my line that goes through those 2 points, I'm really looking for the slope of that line. And I can see that it's a negative slope. So I know my answer is going to be negative. And when I'm doing slope on a graph, I'm looking at rise over run. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down. I'm not going to worry about the negative. I'm just going to put it on the end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 across. So my slope should equal negative 7, 6. And we could put that into a decimal if we want to, but we do the slope formula, we get a fraction as well, and we just want to guarantee that they are the same. So I'm going to label my points x1, y1, x2, y2, and I'm just going to also write up the formula again on the top. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then I'm putting into my points. So it's going to be 4 minus negative 3. And then on the bottom, negative 2 minus 4. So it can be a little confusing. We have 2 points here of the same numbers. That happens every so often. 4 minus a negative 3 is the same as adding. That becomes a 7. Negative 2 minus 4 is a negative 6, so I get negative 7 6. When we simplify that problem, we're just pulling that negative out front. So we ended up with the same slope. And now we're just going to go ahead and use the slope formula on these. And I'm not going to worry. I'm just looking at this bottom part here. Oh, that's not too bad. We can do those. So if I'm calculating out the slope, I'm going to pick my 2 points, and we're going to do one of these and one of the bottom problems. That one's pretty easy. Let's look at this one. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. So we still have an XY value, and then whatever's from the first point, we're just putting in the number 1. Whatever's in the second point, we're putting in the number 2. And then my slope formula, again, Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. Just keep that written somewhere. 6 minus 0 and 3 minus 8. So 6 over negative 5 or negative 6/5. You're going to go through and do some of the other ones. On the bottom, we're going to come up with the slope first. So between my 2 points, X1, Y1, X2, Y2, we're going to deal with that y-intercept a little bit later. And just so that you remember this, 5 minus negative 5, 6 minus 1. This becomes a plus, so 10 over 5, which would equal 2. When I have my slope, I'm just going to put that in for my m. And I'm telling you the y-intercept. So my equation of the line just looks like that. Just now that I know my slope and I already knew my y-intercept, I can put all my pieces together. You have one more to try, and then don't forget to check your answers.